Our next speaker is Saiful Aziz, if I may invite you to the stage. Saiful is Principal and Award-winning Architect at the RT Axis Group in Malaysia, and Saiful will be talking to us today about his research and design process with a focus on the improved healing through salutogenic design elements in rehabilitation facilities.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Ellen Delany and the Academy for the opportunity to present Sokso Rehab Center at this prestigious Congress. Okay, just a little bit about ourselves. My name is Saiful Aziz, Principal of Aziz Architect. We are a Malaysian-based firm. Boutique multidisciplinary design group specializing in green, sustainable built environment. Our interest is basically in projects which has a positive social impact to the society, such as healthcare and affordable housing. And we are also keen to explore new ideas creatively and also contextually. To start off, I would like to invite Mr. Edmund Cheung, our client, the Social Security Organization Malaysia, the Deputy Director, Head of Administration of Sokso Rehab Center, to explain a little bit about the brief of the project.
Hello, good morning. In this conference, I've always been referred to as a client. Yeah, but to understand this project in further details, Saiful mentioned that it is very important that most of us understand why and what are the objectives of this rehabilitation center. So just to inform you that I'm actually from the Social Security Organization of Malaysia. We are a statutory organization under the Ministry of Human Resource, under the government of Malaysia. Our corporate goal is actually to cover all Malaysian workers, honor Malaysian workers, and to promote occupational safety and health, and of course to provide benefits in kinds and also rehabilitation to our workers. We are currently insuring about 13.2 million workers and about 700,000 employers in Malaysia with workers with income of below less than 3,000 ringgit, which is equivalent to about 1,000 US dollars. And it's a contribution-based system where the workers and the employers are required to pay a premium, a very minimal premium to the organization, to the SOCSO in other ways. We manage about 78,000 new claims a year, meaning roughly about 55,000 accidents, composing of commuting accidents, workplace accidents, and also occupational disease, and normally about 13,000 of them, on the average, actually ends up in a permanent disability, and about 10,000 every year ends up being invalid, meaning that they are unable to work. So to understand the SOCSO story on rehab, in the past, we provide a lot of financial aid, basically compensation, both short-term and long-term compensation to our insured persons. And also besides that, we also provide physical rehabilitation such as physiotherapy, occupational therapy, we provide prosthesis, orthotics, and so on. We also provide vocational rehabilitation, meaning that we do modification at work, retraining, reskilling, upskilling, and of course work assistive devices. But the sad thing was, after providing compensation, rehabilitation, and vocational retraining, or the benefits specified under the laws under our social security laws, these are the results that we get. I mean, we get workers still lying down on the bed. So the question is, why and where have we gone wrong? We have provided all these benefits, especially rehabilitation, and yet the results are mainly that the workers gets disconnected from society, gets disconnected from work. And what worries us is that injury normally leads to disability, spouses get disabled as well, and it affects the loved ones. So from a small family unit, from a disabled family, ends up affecting the siblings of that particular family. It impacts the community, impacts productivity, employers, and also, at the end, impacts the country. So we are taking this, as the social security organization, we are taking this very seriously, because a minor issue of one accident can become a national issue. It can impact the socio-economical status of a particular country. So, in present, what we have done is that we are talking about re-engineering rehabilitation. You know, what do we mean by re-engineering rehabilitation? Well, we have provided, as you know just now, we have provided financial aid, physical rehabilitation, we've provided vocational rehabilitation. So the only thing is to re-engineer everything back. And of course, on these three principles, we have built our foundation, and we look into disability management, we look into early intervention, and of course the biopsychosocial approach. And finally, we believe that with all this in place, we would be able to look into successful reintegration and return to work. So it's basically the same thing, you know? It's like building a building. You start with your framework, you look about your foundation, you start the building from bottom up, and of course, in the end of the day, form meets function. I always like to refer to this as like baking a cake, but since it's an architect conference, so I have to relate it with how you actually build a building. But as simple as building a cake, you start with a cake and later on you top it off with your icings. On the successful aspect, we look into what we are trying to do is that we are looking into the transformation of rehabilitation using a biopsychosocial approach, meaning that it is not about medicine alone, it's not about health alone, it's not about the medical care, because most often with our patients or with our clients, it is not the medical problems, it is the psychosocial problems, you know? It is all about family support, integration, co-workers, and so on. We are talking about return to work, we are talking about social reintegration, and of course, we are moving from the perspective of disability to ability. We would like to transform disability to get people back into society. You know, we need to create systems which do not disconnect people from society. We need to have an inclusive system that our facility or the social rehabilitation center is not what you call an institution. We do not want to institutionalize disabled people, but a center which would reintegrate one back to society. So, in future, at that time, we say that we need to look into capacity building, and that's where the whole idea of the social rehabilitation center, which my colleague here, Saiful, will be talking about in the next few minutes. So, in other words, when we talk about rehabilitation, when we talk about building a structure where form meets function, we are talking about that we need to invest in people. The people is the main important thing, and of course to create an inclusive system and not an exclusive system, and to not exclude someone from society. So I'm passing the mic to you, Saiful.
Thank you, Edmund. Okay, to follow up from a very, very high expectation, we set about to say, how do you actually set about achieving this noble but extremely ambitious program? We started off by looking at a few mission statements. First of all, we wanted to create a non-hospital environment. It's a space for healing. Our main client are basically people with disabilities, various disabilities. So we're looking at universal access for all. Mr. Edmund was mentioning biopsychosocial elements. We tried to integrate that into these designs. Biophilia hypothesis, we're looking at us being in the tropical country. We try to celebrate what we have. Green design principle, this is a given thing because in this particular area in Malacca, green principle designs have to be incorporated in any new buildings. And lastly, to include and not exclude one from society. Okay, Sokso Rehabilitation Center in Malacca is arguably the first rehab complex that combines medical and vocational rehab facilities with an allied health institute in the world. And also, on a personal level, this is the first time we designed a medical facility in our firm. A little bit about the location is in Alor Gajah, Melaka, 55.42 acres, and completed January 2014. Located in Malacca, for anybody who has been to Malaysia, Malacca is actually a historical state, about 148 kilometers away from east of Kuala Lumpur. And it was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage since 7th of July 2008. So we took that into consideration and looking at it from biopsychosocial interpretation. The unique thing about Malacca is the Baba Nyonya culture, which is basically an integration of Malay and Chinese customs being developed over a few hundred years ago. We look into the colors, we look into the lifestyle, the building themselves, which is very colorful. We take notes from the usage of tiles, which we interpret into our design. Going to the site, looking at psychosocial point of view, we look at Kuda Kepang, which is a Malay traditional dance, interpreted into the design as a vehicular spine into the site. And from there, we look at we put in all the various functional buildings into Hope, Heal, Rest, and Learn. We look at the biological components, which is basically the spinal column, which then turn into the primary spine, which links all the buildings together, and hence we have a complete building which sit nicely into the existing topography of the site. Okay, now I'm going to explain the functions of the whole complex in terms of journey to healing. The first building that we're looking at is basically Hope, and Hope is basically interpreted by the administration building. It's a welcoming point to all patients to the center and introduction and beginning of the healing process. The administration block creates a starting point in the journey and the last point upon graduation. The design is to emphasize its formal form and function and symbolizes hope to the participants in order to start the healing process. We put in a lot of green design principles such as deep overhang for ambient daylight, high ceiling, cross ventilation, connectivity to the environment, and is all applied throughout. Some of the design elements that we have inside the building. The toilets are basically open. We don't introduce any windows. It's basically just open to the environment. We go through the journey to the next building, but what we do is we take you through the primary spine, which is a very generous 3.5 meter wide green corridor. It's a multifunctional space, primarily for the use of pedestrian access, a wheelchair, electrical buggy, service link. It also provides posing stations and also exercise points. From here, we lead you to another set of building, which is where the healing process is basically concentrated at. Okay. This building is basically designed based on the healing hand, basically the 5 fingers and a palm. The 5 fingers basically where we put in all the various therapy buildings, which is the speech and audio therapy, hydrotherapy, gymnasium, psychology, and occupational therapy. The palm of the hand is where the assessment clinic, offices, and also the beds, 50 beds are located, and we have Century Gardens in the middle. So this is the biggest portion of the building, and sorry. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. This is the core of the activity at the center. This is where the events of healing, including physical, mental, and spiritual treatment, sensory services, robotic rehabilitation system facilities, and others are held. We are exploring biological, psychological, biophilia components hypothesis in this building. Basically, we're looking through natural light, linked to nature. Colors are being used extensively as part of therapy, wayfinding, and also to create the right energy and emotion. In this, we innovate a little bit of a section which is not part of the original brief that we have been given. We have created a sensory garden, which is a link between the fingers and also the palm. So this design is basically based on the Nyonya fan, translated into the form of the roof. It has a few considerations when we were designing this, and a lot of it has to do with complementing the existing environment. Okay. So under the fan, under the folded roof, there is a space which is full of light, air, and landscape, and it is as part of the pain therapy. This particular space allows participants, patients, space to interact either socially. There were events during Hari Raya, which happens to was yesterday, Chinese New Year, and also for Indian celebration. It was held here with all the patients, and also a space that allow people to escape as part of private spaces within the whole of this area. There is a decorative wall which is basically providing portals to the therapy and also pocket gardens. These are visual stimulants and at the same time acting as privacy wall to patient learning to accept new physical condition. The colors, the vibrant colors, are basically again based on the local context, the Nyonya tiles, and at the end of the day, it became a very nice place to take selfie. And if you're looking at it from their Facebook, from the Rehab Facebook, it's full of these pictures. I think, yeah, anyone? Okay. Contextually, in terms of green principles, we're looking at wind corridor. It was an experimentation from our side, and we are quite happy that it works. We have skylights, wind scoops, and at night, it's just a beautiful place to rest and contemplate. Moving to the next set of buildings, we're looking at rest, which is basically the hostel and also the dining block. Okay. So this is basically following up to Kate's presentation yesterday. We acknowledge that emotional support and point of escape, i.e. privacy, is very important to rehab patients. And in this particular project, the way we interpret that private space is by having hostel, which is a 150-bed hostel, is designed as a two-bedded room, one for the patient and the other one is basically for the carer. This allows them to do rehabilitation with family members as forming emotional support. So I think that is a very important element that is being explored. So the building is actually ergonomically designed. The windows are basically can be opened by anybody coming into the rehab, including wheelchair users. Innovation allows all types of disabilities, such as wheelchair, ambulant, blind and deaf person to use the facilities. We continue the journey towards the final destination, which is basically learn. And this is the main part of the whole rehab. The vocational rehab block is created to provide new skills to the patient in order to return to work. The building is designed for learning and social interaction. An exhibition space gallery is actually provided for them to showcase their products. The condition in the workshop actually emulate real-life situation where patients are required to adapt before going back to society. Okay. The other important element in Malaysia are psychosocial elements such as religion play an important role in the healing process. At the center, religion spaces is used as a symbol that govern all activities. The musola, in this case, which is the Muslim prayer hall, is designed for all and not excluding anyone, and it's sought towards Mecca. Daylight, nature, and natural ventilation is celebrated and enhanced to give a feeling of solace and also calmness. Okay, the final part of the whole idea is biophilic elements. This is basically in terms of to celebrate the flora and fauna as it is and also as what is being put into the site. Landscape is translated into exercise stations and also social spaces. The reintroduction of nature are very successful. The center is alive with the sounds of birds and also with insects, but unfortunately that also attracted snakes. So it posed a new problem for the center, but there you are. We can win everything. Quick landscape design strategies. 50% of the area are designed as soft and hard landscape. Street light with solar panels, sculptured lighting, green strategies, as what has been mentioned here. I would like to show a little bit of the video that we did for, which is prepared 1 year earlier for World Architecture Festival in Singapore. That's the last one. Okay. Oh. Sorry, the video is not playing. That's okay. That's okay. I'll just move to the. That's fine. That's fine. It's okay. Okay. In conclusion. The last part. Okay, the sound of nature that you hear on the video was actually captured from site. So in conclusion, we think after almost a year of operation, we have achieved these goals, which is non-hospital environment, universal access for all, biopsychosocial elements are fully integrated, biophilia hypothesis was actually experimented, green design principles was designed in, and the most important thing is to include and not exclude anyone from the society. And we feel that this is what salutogenic design is all about. Thank you.